you know, I work with reptiles and I try to save turtles and tortoises, which actually are the most endangered group of animals, along with primates.
Turtles and tortoises,
If
really?
you think about the percentage that are on the brink of extinction, over half of primates are on the brink of extinction, and over half of turtles and tortoises.
I have no idea.
But where I'm not aligned with PETA is when you have to make a choice between, eradicating a rat that's killing off the last Galapagos tortoises, or eradicate a mongoose that was introduced that's killing off, an iguana in the Caribbean. I will make that choice. PETA basically views it as the rat has rights just as much as the tortoise. And I'd like to have the tortoise around for future generations. So I'm not always aligned with PETA, but in this case, yes.
Well, they have a background with the Animal Liberation Organization, which essentially doesn't think that any animals should be captive. And I do understand their point. But then you have Carl. How's Carl gonna not have an owner? How's little Carl over there not gonna be fed? I mean, do you want French bulldogs to go extinct? Because they will. They can't even breed.
If you did a poll and asked how many people at PETA keep dogs, it's like 95%.
Which is crazy.
So it's a little hypocritical if they don't want people to have pets.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like how it starts and how it's going. Like where did it start from? And I see look. All dogs are a horrible misjustice that's been done to wolves. Like somehow or another, we have become friends with wolves and turned them into these strange things. But the reality of life in 2024 is we have dogs, and dogs need owners, and they love you, and it's a great relationship. Like,
but it's in their genetics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been
thousands of years.
Right. It's like saying that we should be going back to chimps.
Sure.
We should live in the jungle. We should live in trees. Which is also crazy.
What is it, Erica? Chimps are more like chimps, and we are human. Is that?
Chimps are closer to us than they are gorillas because we are the subfamily of chimpanzees, which are called hominins. And yes, chimpanzees are closely related to us more than any other ape.
Yeah.
But it's, back to what you said a minute ago about making these movies. I just want to touch on, why we do this. Because a lot of people miss the point of Tiger King even.
There's a point?
Yeah, there's a point.
I think I missed it.
Well, we were really trying to get Joe Exotic elected president. That was the point. No, but the point was that a lot of docs, man, are great, and they are really informative, but they preach to the converted, people that already know the issue,
Mm-hmm.
Like the Cove, and they're great.
Right.
And what we wanted to do is preach to people that don't know about the issue. So you had to get a lot of eyeballs on it to make a difference, right?
Right.
So that was sort of the goal of both Tiger King and Chimp Crazy in the end.
Well, I think he definitely did that. I mean, I had a joke in one of my earlier comedy specials about Texas and tigers, and I don't know the statistics, but there's more tigers in captivity in Texas than all the wild of the world. In private collections.
Yeah, wow.
They're not in zoos, in people's yards.
Yeah.
There's these wacky people that have fucking tigers in their backyards.
Yeah.
And there's thousands of tigers in Texas that are in people's yards.
Yeah, that statistic has been going around for a long time. That may change. But yes, they used to say there's more than 3,000 tigers in Texas, and there's less than 3,000 tigers in the wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They think there's 5,000 in Texas.
Yeah.
Believe it.
Well, there's also other animals that are in Texas that are exotics, like scimitar oryx, which is very rare in the wild and is endangered in the wild, but it's so common in Texas that you can hunt them.
Yeah.
And they have them on these enormous ranches, 30,000, 50,000 acres, and they're wild. They live wild. I don't have a problem with them. Like, if they could figure out a way to actually ensure that tigers could be kept in a 60,000 acre preserve, and you had adequate funding to where the fences were completely monitored every day to make sure that they don't get out and kill people, you're talking about a different thing. What you're mostly getting is small enclosures of tortured animals who are fed cold meat. And that is not what they want. That's not what nature intended them. They are the cleanup crew. They're everything that hasn't lived, anything that's slow. They keep populations down. They make sure there's not an overpopulation problem with ungulates. That's what tigers do. That's what they do in the wild. And so they're all their instincts, everything, their essence of their being, is all stifled by being captive. And we were talking about giraffes, that the only animal that I have a problem with at the zoo because they're so chill. They're so chill. Babies feed them. When my daughters were young, we'd take them to the zoo, and you could hold a piece of lettuce, and the giraffe, this giant fucking head that's like as big as this table, would come over and gently take the lettuce with their tongue. And we're so confident that they have no aggression towards people that we allow little babies to feed giraffes. Giraffes don't seem to have a problem at the zoo. They seem to be totally relaxed with it. But there's a lot of animals where it's nothing but torture.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's incredible that in the day that we live in, 2024, that and the consciousness and the culture of people, that we still keep certain animals in zoos that really are miserable.
Yeah.
Those are things like, the whales and cetaceans and
Yes.
elephants are not happy in zoos, and
Monkeys.
most primates
Yeah.
are not happy in zoos. Yes, and I think there are animals that lend themselves more, I'd like to say, to being in captivity.
Yeah.
For instance,
Like giraffes. I think giraffes is the only example.
yeah, or a giant tortoise, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Solitary
That's a good
animals,
example too. Solitary. Well, even at just animals that just don't. They're just happy that there's no predators,
Sure.
and they're relaxed.
Yeah.
But the last time I went to a zoo, my daughters they were younger, but not like babies, and we were in Denver, and I was there for a gig, and we went to the zoo, and to this day it haunts me. There's this primate enclosure, and this one monkey was just screaming, like in agony, like being tortured, just holding on to the bars and screaming because he was by himself and just the this tiny little cage, and there was nowhere to go, and people just staring at him all day, and he was just losing his fucking mind. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't, because I felt super hypocritical because I've always had like an issue because it's animal prison. It's animal prison for animals that did nothing wrong.
I was at the Singapore Zoo once, which is a good zoo for zoos in Asia. It's one of the best zoos, maybe the best zoo, along with the Taipei Zoo. But there was a polar bear at the Singapore Zoo. This is like 95% humidity, 90 degrees, and it was green because it was covered in a film of algae. And so the polar bear was literally a green. And you just say to yourself, like, there's just, if you have a zoo in Alaska, you can maybe have a polar bear. But Phoenix, Arizona, Singapore.
But even if you have a zoo in Alaska, polar bears are the one bear that doesn't eat anything but animals. So polar bears are extraordinarily predatory, and they have hunting instincts.
Yeah.
So all day they just want to roam and hunt.
Yeah.
And I drove limos for a while, and I had this gig once in New Hampshire, and I was on my way home, and I stopped just because I do this job where I drop somebody off. It was a few hours away, and on the way back, I got lunch, and I saw this zoo. So let me just check this zoo out. And I went to this zoo. This little shitty zoo in like somewhere in, I think it was in Massachusetts, and there was this polar bear in this tiny little enclosure just going in circles like he was fucking crazy, just going in circles, tiny little enclosure. And I was like, what is that? Why is this okay? Like, what is this? This is not a life. This is terrible. It's terrible.
We with this current, there's another project we've been working on for equal time to Jim Crazy, and you've been spending more time in over 10 years, which loosely covers the exotic animal wildlife trade, international wildlife trade. And through that interest, we've had this incredible opportunity to explore all of these, moral truths about American zoos. For us, one thing that was so deeply fascinating, if there's something like 242 accredited zoos in this country, 750 million people visit zoos annually, which is more than the 5 major sporting events combined.
Wow.
The way in which zoos function, it's like the 80-20 rule. There's 5 or 10 that contribute the majority of the income that cover most of the zoos, and they run like entertainment complexes, like amusement parks, and very little money goes back into conservation. Now, there's a lot of zoos that are doing great stuff, and I think the things that we're learning about is the educational value of zoos for kids is no longer as what they intended it to be. I think there's great things that they do, but there's nothing proven around, zoos are educational facilities for.
Well, what really rocked zoos was the film Blackfish.
Yeah.
And they suddenly went, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The public doesn't like us. And they started putting into effect all these kind of new programs for animal welfare.
A special atmosphere and a grand occasion. Well, the stage is true.
Enrichment, which means that you give a bear something to do so it doesn't do what you were just saying. You put their food in ice so they have to work to get it out. You put their food in a ball. You make them have to do things. But, that was the big shakeup for zoos in terms of animal welfare. And now, of course, it's still evolving, and zoos are scared when they see Tiger King and even Chimp Crazy.
But Joe's daughter's grandkids will still see orcas at SeaWorld.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, because
they live a long time.
That's a long time, and the SeaWorld,
maybe not granddaughters, but
okay. But I say it more. I have little boys, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I think it's particularly
Set
interesting.
for what should be a terrific night of football here at Anfield. I'm Derek Ray, and joining me to provide expert analysis is Stuart Robson. And live action coming up from the Carabao Cup. It is Liverpool versus Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Well, the hosts certainly go into this game as strong favourites. They have better technical players and can be brilliant when everything clicks. But their opponents are well organised, resilient and pose a threat on the counter-attack. Therefore, an early goal will be the main priority for the home team.
Well, where he's going right now is sort of a big part of our next documentary, which is about the illegal animal trade, but also zoos.
Well, nicely cut out.
For a very long time, maybe so. Anyway, so
but the zoo thing, I mean, you're into that. You get emotional on this, and I
Barnett.
What's really cool about this kind of medium that we're in,
That is a very fine challenge in difficult circumstances.
Large decades of
always difficult to predict in advance who might decide a game, but you could make a strong case for this man, I think, Stuart. What are you expecting to see from him?
Well, Derek, we know he loves linking up with other players, but when he's in and around the penalty area, that's when he's at his most dangerous, when he plays little 1-2s around his marker and then plays the next forward pass into a runner. He could be the key to unlocking this defence.
I'm not anti-zoo totally either, and I have no real position or credibility.
And snuffed out the danger immediately.
But I do think I'm interested in asking those questions. What we can do to make these institutions better.
Yeah, I mean, for sure they should be bigger. I mean, there should be a size requirement. You should have to have
the defenders know they need to get tighter. Chance to put them in front.
So that they don't.
And there it is! But hang on, the flag has gone up, and it's not going to count.
Well, it was a close call, but he is just offside. Good finish, mind you.
Ideally, what we should do is emulate their wild existence. But then you have this moral question of, are we
making it simple for the keeper in the end?
Into the tiger cage and just let them sort it out? Because that's really what they want.
Mosquera.
What lions want to do is chase down a wildebeest and eat it. And instead, what we do is we slide.
Well, doesn't have to do it on his own.
And that's torture.
But they took care of the situation defensively.
It's torture for them to have an enclosed space where it's small. It's torture for them to not be able to express
what to like about that pass?
Instincts. I mean,
well, the fans really want him to shoot. Well, it's a long way off target, you've got to say.
The last known.
Well, this has to get better because, as those stats confirm, the attacking play from both sides just hasn't been good enough. It's all been a little bit too cautious so far.
Trying to keep this thing from going extinct. It may not be extinct. There's a lot of
Wolves doing well to regain possession.
That's an eerie footage of the last ones.
Yeah, they think there might actually be living specimens that are alive.
Mosquera.
There's.
On this state, they're bringing it.
I know you know Forrest a lot.
Yeah, I was just about to bring up.
I also have colleagues that have been for final seats and
They need to get tighter. Can they forge ahead? Well, they would have done had it not been for the keeper.
Well, they should be ahead now. Yes, it was a good save, Derek, but he should score from there.
Try to find a Wolverine. You know, Wolverine populations are pretty
Jones.
but good luck finding them. They're very difficult to find.
Warren Zaire Emery. Will he find the net? And the keeper more than equal to
And then
it.
you're dealing with battle scenes, you're dealing with very unpopulated area. It's
Delivering it. Immediate priority to clear the danger.
Yeah.
And that brings to an end the first half here at Anfield. Well, some days it happens for you, on other days not at all, and it falls in the latter category as far as he's concerned, Stuart.
Well, it's been one of those days for him. He hasn't had that much of the ball, and when he has, he's given it away. Without his creativity, I'm not sure they get a winner here.
That is the one. That's 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 That is the one. That's
coyotes. In
Well, they've
California
kicked
has
off
a
the
lot.
second half here at
And there's a
Anfield.
lot of people where I used to live in the hills that did not like coyotes. I'm like, do you like rats? Okay, well, if you don't like rats, you should like coyotes. Yeah, don't leave your dog outside because your dog's going to get, my daughter's puppy got killed by a coyote, and had chickens killed by coyotes.
Well, we always like a good transfer rumour, and this
And
actually
they kill
appears to be
fawns.
more than a
kill-
rumour.
yeah, they
What's your
kill
take, Stuart?
baby cows,
Yes,
they kill
the rumours
baby
suggest
everything.
that the
That's just
official
what they
bid is
do.
around
That's their
£70
job.
million, which
You
I
know,
would
but
say is
there's
fairly close to the
ecosystem,
mark.
and that's
Is it enough
part
to
of the
prize them away from
ecosystem.
Leverkusen?
It's really
Only time will tell.
natural ranching.
A Liverpool free kick coming up.
There was a bounty
And
on
time for the
coyotes
change
where
now.
they brought in 2 years. They got like people to bring in 100 sets of years.
Could go ahead. And the keeper, there to deal with it.
California, New Hampshire, Texas, which were sheep ranchers because sheep were done. The coyotes got sheep.
Well, these
easier
Liverpool
than
fans can sense a
cows.
goal coming here.
They would
They really have
trap
increased the
the
tempo,
coyotes.
but they need to make the most of this dominant spell.
Gasoline on them. They light them on fire and let them run off burning. I mean, they hate coyotes.
They
Which is
just
Well,
really
we're into the
upsetting.
final half hour.
they're cool. They're just not cool to eat your cat.
And a tidy
They're
tackle.
fascinating animal. I remember when I
A
first
danger
saw
here as he runs at them.
California in '94 and stayed at
Has eyes for goal.
It's like those they're pre-furnished apartments that you just rent, like people that are like sort of transient, just moving in. They allow you to like have a place before you get a place. And I was driving, so it was in Burbank, and I was driving down the street, and I was like, "These fucking dogs! Like, what is going on? What are these dogs running around?" And then I drove over. I'd never seen a coyote before.
Oh, wow.
I was like, "That's a coyote?
Yeah.
Oh my god, there's coyotes on the streets." And that was pretty rare then. But 30 years later, it became insanely common. I would rarely go. I lived in a fairly rural area where I lived in California.
And fine goalkeeping.
Or outside the city, and I had a lot of acres. And it was cool. But you experience a lot.
And there's the delivery.
Coyotes almost.
Well, another corner following on from the last one.
Mangy
Yeah, but there's something cool about coyotes. But the reality of coyotes, I don't know if you know why
It
they're
might
so
still be
successful.
problematic.
One of the reasons why is because they're the only. So red wolves can interbreed with coyotes, and that you
That
get
is
the
a
point.
very fine
But
challenge in
gray
difficult
wolves do not
circumstances.
breed with coyotes, they just kill them. And so, because the gray wolf, which lived in California and lived all over the
Succeeded in
East Coast,
keeping it in
was
play.
the predominant predator. The coyotes had
And
a
easily
developed
intercepted.
way of surviving, and the adaptation was when they call out.
Encouraging
they yell
move
out
from
at
Liverpool.
night, they're trying to do roll call, figure out how they go.
And space to cross
When
it.
one is missing, the female.
And making sure there was no
they change
danger
their
in the end.
reproductive system where she will develop more pups. And
Needs to
then they
take
will
great
expand their
care.
territory. So because they were
Aware of the
persecuted
threat,
by
solving the
wolves,
problem.
they expanded their territory.
Well,
So
this
now
is the
when
home of
people
live football,
came in
EA
and started
TV,
killing
and we
off
have
the
more
wolves, which
action
they
coming
did
up from the
successfully,
Premier League for
they
you.
were never
It's
able to kill off
Liverpool
coyotes
facing
because of
Aston
this
Villa.
trait. So coyotes are now
And it took a little
every
nick before it went over the
city
touchline.
in the
So a
United
throw
States.
in here.
This was not the case just 30 years ago.
And the
They're what we
substitution
call-
will occur now.
It's called
And a chance to whip it in here.
predators, and these are animals that do
Oh, could be. So nearly a goal at long last.
Well, if he scores there, that would surely have been the winner.
Thrive and do better.
Well, they're certainly thinking about a winner,
Human activity.
but nothing comes of it.
Then a lot of other animals, and some coyotes are one of those. It's a garbage. Yeah, it's a garbage. Yes.
Foul there. Free kick awarded.
It's highly adaptable creature.
Yeah.
And just for the record, I do like coyotes.
Released
I
it
listen to
nicely.
them almost every night having a
Great effort to keep
tailgate
that one
party
in play.
at my house.
They're cool.
They're cool. They're interesting. They make the
And
area
support
so nice
available.
together.
Can they forge ahead?
Yeah, but you know,
Oh, body in
I'm
the
sure
way,
you've seen that video
crucially.
from
Might be a
this
chance
man
to
was,
break.
Unloading his car and a coyote came and snatched his top. Like right in front of him.
Opportunity it
They're
is.
fucking predators, right? You have to be careful.
And a goal! At this stage of the game, it might be decisive.
That's what they did.
And just look at their supporters.
There's no doubt that we live in
Well, here it is again, and it's all about the pace on the counter-attack. They were so quick to break out from their defensive positions, and his movement's so clever. Once he gets onto it, there's only one thought in his head: smash it as hard.
It's full-time, and Liverpool move on.
Yes, it was a close contest, but one I think they just about deserved to win. They did play the more creative football.
Everybody's gonna live. They understand they're living in this system. They're living in this ecosystem. Most people in the United States that live in urban
Some
areas,
questions regarding the match?
have this strange idea that we are not animals, that we are not part of nature. You know, it's just weird. We're fucking weird. We're weird in our justifications. Weird in what we allow ourselves to do.
Yeah, that's back to the chimpanzees. That was one of the things that I just couldn't ever,
Thank you for your time.
you know, I couldn't ever connect with this woman, Tanya, that kept this chimp and tried to explain to her, you know, that we are chimps, you know, effectively. And, you know, and she just, you know, took the page out of, you know, Genesis, where she just said, you know, I'm not, you know, we're not animals. This is an animal, and I can own it like property. Anyway, that was just one of the things she just never really fully understood.
Well, to be kind, she's not bright. You know, she's not a bright woman, not a well-read woman, you know, unfortunately. And this seems to be part of the theme of all these folks, which is weird, you know. And then you got the one guy in Tiger King that's essentially running like a little sex cult, right? That guy.
Doc Antle.
Yeah, and then you've got the Tiger King himself.
Joe.
You got Joe Exotic, who is also kind of running a strange sex cult. But, you know, he's just got all this personality, and he's so interesting and fascinating. And if he wasn't in jail, it's really unfortunate, you know, because if he wasn't in jail, he'd be a very popular person.
Can you imagine if he was?
Well, he's trying to get Donald Trump to exonerate him and pardon him. I mean, he was constantly, after I had talked about Tiger King.
Sure, yeah.
I get messages from that guy. I don't know how he's giving me messages. I'm assuming it's someone who works for him.
Yeah.
But I get messages all the time. Like, you've got to help get him out, put him on your podcast, do this, do that. Like,
well, he also has communication in jail. He gets somehow he's able to get a phone. He's doing video calls. And
well,
stuff.
you know how it goes.
Yeah.
You know.
But there was a moment when we were filming this kind of like second installment of Tiger King where we covered this pardon, presidential pardon. There's a real shot where Joe was actually on a list, supposedly, that Trump was going to
Hilarious.
It's hilarious.
So I don't remember exactly what the specifics of his accusation. So was he caught trying to hire someone to whack that lady?
Yeah.
So he was
Twice. Yeah.
You know, that lady. Is there any truth to this idea that she whacked her husband?
Carol Baskin. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but it's sort of
It's clean.
else, and it was either, it feels as if it was her or members of her family, and they were the only ones to gain. And so,
It's a great way to dispose of the body.
I don't know how she disposed of the body. It's nice to,
Well, you have meat grinders on premises, like you have enormous predators on premises, and you feed them a tiger.
Don't you think that the only thing I'd say, Eric, is the circumstances surrounding the change in the will? I mean, who alters it to account for disappearance?
It's my disappearance.
It's a very, very strange.
No one says that.
And isn't there
strange
like a
thing.
disparity in the handwriting?
We did the handwriting experts. We did the entire thing.
Yeah.
To prove otherwise.
It's also just when she talks about it.
You know,
Just-
but Joe, back to Joe, Joe Exotic. You know, I was on the phone with him a lot up until he was convicted. You know, from prison, and he just was convinced he was going to be exonerated and not convicted. And they offered him, the feds offered him a deal, which was something like 6 or 7 years. You know, he can flee or you can go to court.
He'd probably be out by now.
I was just going to say, he'd be out now. And so he was so convinced that he was going to win, which is so delusional. But yeah, poor Joe would be out right now had he made that deal.
By the way, how crazy is that? That you could plot to kill somebody and let you out in 4 years. Like, I know you've been locked up with a bunch of murderers and thieves, but I'm sure you're a better person now.
Yeah. Well, it's a plot and then
learned.
intent. Paying someone to go do something.
Right. There's quite a few steps involved.
But yes, Joe's now pro-Trump again. He was pro-Biden when Trump did
Because he was trying to get Biden to pardon him. They wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. But Trump might.
Yeah.
Especially this time around.
Yeah.
Just for funsies.
Well, let's hope Tanya doesn't go to prison. I don't wish that on Tanya.
I haven't seen episode 4, so I don't know. But when you guys were filming, again, spoiler alert, please, if you're watching the series, stop right now and scoot ahead by a few minutes. When they found that Tonka was in the basement, and when I saw when you guys are filming it, I was like, Jesus Christ, this lady is so crazy. She's showing everybody. She has, with all due respect, she just does not seem like a smart person, and she's almost like if you gave her an IQ test, and then gave the chimp an IQ test, it'd be a toss-up. I mean, I think that's part of the problem. I don't think this lady understands the consequences of what she's doing, just like she doesn't understand how crazy her eyelashes look. All of it is just there's some fuses that are missing, some wires that aren't connected, and then because of the fact that at one point in time, at least, it was legal for her to do what she was doing, and they become accustomed to being able to have, and then their identity revolves around they're the person that has all the monkeys and all the chimpanzees. It was just fucking weird.
Well, it's still legal.
It's still
legal.
I thought they changed it.
No, there's no federal law preventing ownership.
Jesus
of
Christ,
chimpanzee.
you can own a fucking chimp
Right.
still?
There's 20 or so states legally do it.
Oh my God.
Missouri's one of them.
Oh my God.
But background, we spent about 4 years making this documentary series.
First of all, how'd you start? How do you find out about these people?
Go ahead.
After Tiger King, how do you get anybody to talk to you on camera?
I've known a lot of animal people, Joe, but I did not know about monkey moms. And along the course of making Tiger King, I started filming some monkey moms, and I mean, like as you see in Jim Crazy, you just can't make them up. And so after Tiger King, I just thought, let's scratch the surface. Let's check into these monkey moms again. And so it's these women that dress up their monkeys like dolls, like Joan Biddy Ramsey, like a little pageant doll, and they want them to be kids, and they seem to have the same pathology over and over and over. There's a lot of monkey moms out there that we did not film, and they have annually something called a monkey ball. They all come together with their monkeys. Anyway, we discovered them in the course of making Tiger King, and
My grandmother had a monkey.
Yeah. You hear
My
the story a
grandmother
lot.
had a monkey.
Yeah, you hear the story a lot.
That she kept in the attic.
really,
Yeah, the monkey's name's Chi-Chi, and Chi-Chi used to eat gum. Like, you give Chi-Chi a piece of gum, Chi-Chi would unwrap the gum and put the gum in his mouth, or her mouth. I don't remember if it was a boy or a girl.
Do you know what kind of monkey?
I do not. I was
Okay.
very small.
Yeah.
I was very young at the time, and I remember she had to get rid of it because it bit my cousin.
yeah. Well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Chi-Chi couldn't be around anybody other than my grandmother. My grandmother was very eccentric.
Yeah, they're territorial, and they're protective of their owner. So, when I was young in the 70s, and 60s, 70s, 80s, you could buy a monkey in virtually any pet store across the United States. And thank God people realize, like your grandmother, they're not good
You can buy
pets.
them in the newspaper.
Yeah, they're not good pets.
I think my grandmother, after her kids were grown, she just decided she wanted a kid forever. If I had to guess.
Wow.
Yeah, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
That's our kind of consensus on a lot of
Yeah.
it.
Also, a kid that doesn't talk back.
Yeah. It's a great book you love. It's by this guy who had a store in New York where we traveled like
This should be something to savour. The best defence in the league up against the freest scoring team in the league. Who will come out on top? Hello to you, wherever you happen to be. Our action comes to you today from Villa Park. I'm Derek Ray, and with me here on the commentary box is Stuart Robson. And it's all about action from the Premier League in this case. It's Aston Villa taking on Liverpool.
Thanks, Derek, as always. This should be a good game. Great atmosphere inside the stadium. We've got two teams full of quality, some interesting matchups, and two coaches that want to play an attractive brand of football. What more could you ask for?
A Liverpool free kick coming up.
I think it was in Harlem who had a tiger dog. Yeah. And then there's
Nicely timed tackle.
of the cops.
Free kick awarded to Liverpool.
Yeah. And you see the tiger bearing its fangs. And I go, that class fucking thing. That is so crazy. And this thing is trapped in this
And the goalkeeper not offering any scraps that time.
Like
Let's take a look at the Liverpool starting 11. Alisson begins in goal. Trent Alexander-Arnold plays with Andrew Robertson in the wide defensive areas. And rather than use a strike partnership, they've gone with just the one player in attack.
Humans that want those. They want those.
Well, which team is going to outwit the other today? The hosts have the tightest defence in the league, while their opponents have been the most prolific in front of goal. Stuart, how do you read this one?
Well, Derek, what a contest this should be. A well-drilled defensive unit against a free-flowing attack, as you mentioned. This will be close, I think, but it's also going to be exciting.
Xanadu, it's called Shambhala.
What was the chance they could get caught out on the break here?
You've talked about this. Griffith growing up. Lions.
Yeah, crazy movie War.
Yeah.
So Bosley.
Yeah.
Diaz. And it goes! The opening goal in this contest.
Tigers and Lions. She built a museum for herself. So she's got her own museum.
Well, here's the replay. Watch how he goes past his man with such ease. And it's just a change of pace. And the finish is just as good. That's an excellent goal.
Generally speaking, I think it's one.
Well, I guarantee if you go through the Texas elections, there's a bunch of good old
Jacob
boys.
Ramsey.
Exactly that.
And a change to the scoreline at the Emirates. Let's join Alex Scott.
Yeah, it's a goal for Arsenal. They've scored the opener with 25 minutes on the clock.
Alex with the info as ever.
That is agriculture. Okay?
Tielemans.
It's just you're doing a different form
Good use of advantage there.
of deer agriculture. You're not really
Very alert defending to cut off
hunting
the
to me
supply.
is you go into the water.
Now counter-attacking possibilities.
And you experience real nature, and it's fascinating. It's
Alexander-Arnold. Oh, fancy footwork. Every goalkeeper would expect to catch that one.
None of that exists.
Watkins.
Yeah, Canada, she can go shoot like in South Africa, a lot. And the
A bit of running room now on the wing. And playing it back.
Recently released.
Reading it well.
Yeah.
There's no sport
Well, an opportunity from the corner to get right back into this one.
For elk or deer.
Well, just listen to the crowd. They know this is a big chance to equalise.
Which is, one, just the obvious statistic is that more
Araujo.
lands are protected because of hunting.
Now with
You're killing
Alexander-Arnold.
a deer, but you're protecting all the other stuff.
And getting close to half-time with Liverpool in front here. Stuart, what strikes you about what you've seen from them in the first half?
Yes, they've defended really well all over the pitch. Their work rate and discipline has been excellent. But any drop in tempo and this lead could easily slip away.
Oh, they might score here, Stuart. And they've done it to square the game once again. Exhilarating.
Numbers of these animals are, and how many people can go with them. And they
Well,
also
here's the
know
replay.
because
He's
you
done
have
well to get his head up, pick out a teammate, and the finish is clinical. He just makes it look so easy, doesn't he?
They make sure that your tag is right, you got the right species, you got the right
So in business
sex.
once more on the back of
So
that
they
very
have a
important
very
equaliser.
accurate number of how many animals here, and they spend a lot of money doing this. These wildlife do an absolutely incredible job. There's more white-tailed deer in this country
So back
right
underway
now
and an intriguing second half in
Part of that
prospect.
is because of agriculture. That's where it gets weird. So agriculture, particularly, I have a good buddy of mine who is he's an archer, professional archer, and he lives in Iowa rather. always get those confused. And in Iowa, it's all farmlands.
Matty
Right.
Cash.
And they have enormous deer, and they set these ranches
Danger
up.
averted.
He has
Well
a
read.
place that's like 600 acres.
A lot
It's
to
all-
look forward
there's no
to
fences.
on the
Animals
Champions
can
League
come and
group
go.
stage
But
front
they
here on EA
establish these
TV
food
live.
plots,
It's
and
Aston
they put
Villa
these
against
things in to
Real
make
Madrid.
it a good
That looks
place
a really
for deer to
entertaining
be, so
game.
they can
Two
hunt
good
them.
teams with
So
two
it's this
excellent
weird
coaches.
sort
I
of-
can't wait for that one to come round.
Planned community.
sort of ethical bastardization of the wild, right? It's like dealing with the reality of what
Bailey?
you have. You have untold thousands
Well, that's as
and
good a
thousands
challenge as
of
you're likely to see.
agriculture acres. So thousands and thousands of acres of Monsanto corn.
Well, a
And
goal to
they're
tell
all-
you about
these
in the
deer
Arsenal game.
thrive there.
Let's join Alex
Because
Scott.
when they chop
It's
down
a
the
goal
corn,
for
they don't chop it all
Arsenal.
down.
They're now
And,
behind
you know,
by
these
one
deer,
with
they go there
59
for
minutes
fresh feedings.
gone.
They go
The
there, you
game
see
has
them
been
eating corn and
fascinating so far,
eating
Ben.
grass. There's grass
Thanks
everywhere.
as always,
There's
Alex.
plenty of food. And a very low
needs
number
an
of
accurate
predators.
cross.
Like Iowa does not have a lot of, they don't have wolves, they don't have a lot of animals that would sort
McGinn?
of balance out the population of these animals. And so you have insane
Really
amounts
sound
of parks.
defending.
Like
Well, they're
when
going
I
to be
was
very
in,
cross with
visiting
themselves.
my buddy there, and just driving from the airport to his house, we saw like 50 fucking deer. And if you're going there around November, which is the rut, the men lose their mind. So the male deer, they're horny as hell. They're crazy, and the female are breeding. The female are running from the males, and they're running right into traffic, and the males running after them. And they're running right into traffic. It's kind of nuts. It's a really nutty situation because it only exists because there's no predators. So if like California has this bizarre model, and what California would like, I mean, California is, I think, the only state that doesn't have a fish and game department. They have fish and wildlife, and so they treat it very differently. Instead of treating it as a renewable resource where people can go and get their own food and hunt animals in the wild, they treat it like we should have the animals take care of themselves. And so that's why it's illegal to kill a mountain lion in California, and they have a large number of mountain lions. It's probably underreported.
I have mountain lions on my property, like, all the time.
They're dangerous. They're underreported, and they are a predator.
Because
and they
that
will
was a
kill
wasted
people.
opportunity.
And They have to. It's not often, but if you're on a bike, the problem with being on a bike is you're moving a little too quick, and their instincts take over. They
Grafenberg.
think you're trying to run from them, and they can't even help themselves.
Well, a
So they're
goal
kid,
update to bring you
all
in
you
the
are,
Arsenal game.
their
Alex
instincts,
Scott has all
and
the
then
news
they
for
just
us.
go chasing
Yeah,
after them. But
it's a goal
I've seen
for Arsenal. They
once
now
walk,
lead
and it is
3-2 with 68 minutes played.
so great.
Alex, thank you very much.
When you stare into the eyes of those things, you're like, whoa.
What are you supposed to do?
You can't do much, man.
Now, options are plenty. Tremendous vision.
You know,
Yeah.
And
if
dealt
you-
with
if
that
you're
ball
sleeping,
comfortably.
you should really have
Effective
that weapon ready
press.
because they will jump you. Every now and then they jump people.
15 minutes
it's
left for
recent
play.
video. Yeah, well, I believe 2 people were killed last year in the Pacific Northwest.
Of all the big cats, I think
Virgil van Dijk.
Jaguars kill the least people. Which is
And Liverpool
Crazy
might
for
be
some
able to
reason.
cash
But-
in.
Well, they also live in least populated areas for the most part.
Can they forge
but
ahead?
mountain lions,
Well, they've gone and missed a wonderful
but,
chance.
typically,
Well, with time running out, you couldn't ask for a better opportunity. I just can't see
it's
them
not like
getting
a
another
tiger
one now.
that, has all its prey. You get trapped by the local
Now
people
let
in
us
India.
point you
they
in the
have to go
direction
and
of
try to find
Champions League
prey.
group stage action coming up
Jaguars
live here on
to,
EA
at this
TV.
point in time,
It's
realize that
Liverpool
people have bows,
versus
arrows, and
Milan.
spears.
I'm really looking forward to
Every now
that.
and then,
Two
if you go after a
entertaining
person,
teams
you
in
get
what
jumped.
should be a really feisty affair.
So they probably like grizzly bears behave very differently in places where grizzly
Potentially
bears.
productive here
So
for
in
Liverpool
the lower
on the
48,
flank.
it's
Can he
illegal.
put them in front?
If they see you,
Oh, goodness me, he hit the
if you
post.
run into them in the wrong thing,
Cutting
run
the ball
away, they
back.
run towards you.
This could
Especially
wrap it
for
up.
use of predators.
Well, the
It's very
bar
dangerous.
can be
And
the
that's great.
goalkeeper's
And they
best
will treat
friend.
you as food if they're really hungry.
In the course of making Tiger King, I would interview people about tigers and how it's like keeping
Can they nudge
100
in front
tigers.
late on
Always say
here?
to me, I'd rather
In possession to
have
give them the
tigers
lead, maybe.
march
Oh, they've done it!
than
They forged ahead, and it might be the goal that gives them victory.
Well, here it is again, and he's just passed that into the net. That's a very good finish, you have to say.
And the referee blows for full time. It's not the result Liverpool fans were hoping for. Liverpool have been defeated.
Yes, Derek, they were well off their usual standards today, and with the quality that they have in their squad, I think it's fair for the fans to demand more. Too many bystanders for me, just not good enough.
I don't know if it's all tigers and gators, but chimps can figure shit out. And one of the chronic problems keeping chimps is that they can figure out how to escape. So you can never use a combination lock. It's just something that they figure it out. And you gotta use oftentimes 3 pairs of locks. I'm just bringing it back to chimps because, you know, people think, oh, it's a chimp, it's so cute, it's in the circus. Trust me, it's a lot easier to have a tiger.
Time for a few questions.
I can imagine. And also, when I was watching this lady's enclosure, I was looking at the steel that's drilled into wood, and I'm like, we can get out of that. We can get out of it 100%. The way that thing is bolted into the wood, so all you have to do is kick that door enough. You kick that door hard enough, and that wood will give out. It's the wood that it's like you're encased in steel bars, but the steel bars.
Thanks, that'll be all for today.
Wood's easy for a chimp to break. They're so much fucking stronger than us.
Yeah.
If that thing knew that it could just grab those bars and slam and slam,
It would have worked on that all day.
100% it would have got through.
Yeah.
You would have had to figure out a way better cage, especially the one that she put in her home.
You know, I'll tell you a really weird story that I just never would have thought in a million years about a chimp. I was interviewing a guy in Kenya that had a chimpanzee, and the keeper was this blonde woman, and all the chimp ever saw was this blonde woman. So the guy gave the chimp Playboy, and then it graduated to porn. And the chimp, because he'd never seen other chimps, it was raised in isolation, started thinking it was human, and started sexually identifying with this woman that was keeping it, and started becoming sort of addicted to pornography. So just to give you, sort of segueing, but how crazy, and you know, like these chimps, they'll have a favorite show. Like I remember a group of them in South Africa, all they watched was Avatar. But anyway, just back to sort of how weird it is to keep a chimpanzee. You don't have a tiger getting addicted to human pornography.
Right.
Watching Avatar all day long. So anyway,
They're too intelligent. They're just way too intelligent, especially as they get 5, 6, and 7 years old. They get really fucking dangerous. That lady in Connecticut, I had heard that she slept in the bed with that chimpanzee.
Well, that's where I was going. One of the things we did not know, which I always wanted to know more about, is what really is going on in that bed with that woman. I mean, I don't want to talk about it in too much detail here, but you have to ask yourself. You have to ask yourself, like, how weird does it get?
See, I mean, how weird does it get? Wasn't she giving it Xanax and wine? Get that alone.
You haven't seen the.
Viagra.
She was giving it Viagra?
I'm joking. Oh.
I think,
But you can't just say that.
She's gonna get sued.
Cannot joke. But speaking of that, though, you saw the second episode. We obviously.
How many gyps need Viagra?
So they're very active.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Actually, I heard that a chimp can fuck 50 times a day.
That's
Yeah.
right.
In the wild. I saw
Yeah.
So maybe they don't need Viagra. Okay.
Well, primates are very promiscuous, and chimpanzees in particular. If you notice that chimpanzees have the largest balls of any primate, and there's a reason for that. The more promiscuous the female chimpanzees are, the more sexually active the males become, and the bigger their testicles are. So there's like a direct correlation between the size of the male's testicles, and they think that exists with human beings as well, but it's a little more problematic to examine. But
so that's my problem.
yeah, if you're around a bunch of ladies that are a bunch of sluts, you might get fired up.
No wonder I never got married.
I think that with chimpanzees, you're dealing with these incredibly complex social structures. I'm sure you guys have seen Chimp Nation.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good because it is a rare documentary that had this established element in that these scientists had been embedded in this group of chimpanzees for 20 years. And so these scientists had very specific rules. You do not look them in the eye. You don't get any closer than 20 yards. If they come towards you at 20, just move away. don't ever have food. There's like a bunch of rules, and as long as you have those rules, they behave completely normally, and they just you're just a thing. You're like a tree or a bird or something they're not interested in, which is really interesting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, amazing.
Because they got incredible footage of the social interactions. They got a detailed analysis of how they establish dominance and who's in control. And then it's we used to think it's always the biggest, strongest chimp, but no, it's not. It's ones that form unions and bonds and communities. Very interesting. It's so much like us.
Well, I think also what's just so amazing about that film is, and I give them a ton of credit. Most people that go out to do a documentary don't have the capacity to film that many days. Like they covered that.
Yes.
I don't know. It was like hundreds of days or something.
Yeah, years.
And years. And I
Yeah.
think, they really invested the time and they deserve the credit because they put in that amount of time. I mean, for us to do even, Trim Crazy, we filmed how many days?
It's probably close to 250
I mean,
days.
most people can't do that.
Right,
You
right,
know?
right.
And so,
I mean, it's incredible. Resource suck. Like, how much did it cost?
that's where I'm going.
Yeah, my God.
It's not a
But
really.
in order to make a documentary this way, you have to catch it while it's happening, contemporaneously. So you have to be there. If you snooze, you lose. If you're not there, you're not going to make Chimp Crazy.
Right, right. And
Or Chimp, what's it called? Chimp Nation.
Chimp Empire.
Empire.
Is that what it is? Oh, yeah.
well, see, Chimp.
There's two, right?
Chimp Empire, right?
That's Chimp Empire. Is Chimp Nation another one?
Oh, Chimp Empire.
Yeah, this is the
Chimp
Netflix one.
Empire.
Yeah.
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 The way that see. The thing about the difference between your show is you need someone who's compelling, and so you have to find someone like, and you what's her name again? Tanya. Crazy Tanya. And Joe Exotic. You need someone who's like the figurehead, like with the photo that you guys have on the promo of her laying down and the chimp behind her. It's perfect. It's perfect. I mean, you need that nutty person to compel you because there's part of all of us that recognizes that thought would come into our minds, but then rational thought would go into play. Like, you can't do this. They're dangerous. They're big. They get older. You can't control them. What happens to them? It's not fair for them to be. And then you go, I don't want to chimp. But if you're dull-minded, if you got a 9-volt brain, and you look at this like, I am gonna they're more important to me than my own babies. Like, when she says stuff like that, you're like, oh well, you shouldn't even have a dog. Like, you definitely shouldn't be allowed to vote.
No, but it's interesting you say you have to find those characters, but you also have to find a story. And I mean, you can talk about this, is how wide a net we cast. Because after Tiger King, it wasn't like we just jumped into this chimp mob world. We were filming, Mark the Shark and, women.
Yeah, we were interested.
I mean, it took a lot of time
in the animal human relationship in a variety of forms. I think we and you see in episode 1, one of the first things we shot years before we even met Tanya was this woman, this part of the circus family, Pam Rosaire, watching 2001: Space Odyssey with her chimpanzee Chance.
Yeah.
Talk about a sobering experience. Me and Carl, distance with Chance the chimpanzee, 15 years old, pounding basically a modified trailer home, the floor echoing. The loudness was of that sound on the floor was so loud I had to take my headset off.
Yeah, it was a lot scarier, and you were there. It was a lot scarier to film chimps than tigers. The crew didn't have a problem going into a tiger enclosure, because the thing about tigers is, as long as they're about under the age 4, even though it looks like a full-grown tiger, they haven't gone through puberty yet. They haven't gotten the tiger mentality of killing you. But a chimp, anyway, the chimp filming was much more difficult.
Well, they're also like human characters and wiry, and you don't know what's going to happen. They're on these kind of leashes.
Well, it's also how they evolved. I mean, that's what kept them alive. If you watch Chimp Nations, like, those sort of instincts is what keeps them alive.
Sure. Very murderous.
Well, we didn't really know how murderous they were until Attenborough. When David Attenborough did that series, I think it was in the 90s, when he captured the chimps eating monkeys.
Yeah,
and this is one of the things that when I had the guy from Chimp Nation on, I discussed it with him. It's like how often do they eat monkeys? Like, we couldn't even show it all. it would just be like the whole show would be chimps eating monkeys because that's what they want to do. They want to eat monkeys. That's their primary source of protein. They like fruit. Fruit's great, but they also like monkeys.
They colobus monkeys, yeah, and they eat. You know, I'm a reptile guy, and in the range of those chimps in the wild, there's a tortoise, and this tortoise, it's like our box turtles, but it's much bigger. But it's called a hingeback tortoise, and it literally closes up like a rock. Like you can't see it, any flesh. The chimps will grab that tortoise, and they'll just bang it against the tree and just crack it open like a cantaloupe.
Wow.
And I'm just saying that because yes, they're really hardcore when it comes to the way they predate on other animals.
And they're about as strong as a 500-pound man. It's so
right.
Yeah, it's so insane for us. We had a chimp on the set of News Radio, like 96 or something like that. There was a baby chimp. It was a baby, and it was in a diaper. And this chimp climbed on my back and whacked me a couple times in the back, just playing. It was just having fun. And I remember, first of all, the feeling of holding it. It's like it was made out of steel wires. It wasn't made out of like a baby. You know, you pick up a baby. Babies are like soft. You pick up a 3-year-old, they're soft little things, and you hold on to them, and they're weak. These things were strong as fuck, like in a bizarre way. We like to look at something that's close to our size and think, oh, I'd probably overpower that. You know, I know how to fight. I'll fight that fucking chimp off. Now you have zero chance. It's a different thing. Everything about it is different. The muscle structure is completely different. The tendon structure is completely different. And the amount of force it can generate
the
is
arm leverage is pretty incredible.
You know, but
they
it's
also
like,
want to fuck with you. They also want to.
I was just gonna say, like people always
your
talk,
eyeballs
people
out.
always
Yeah.
talk about like, will a bear kill the lion, or will the bear kill the tiger? I think chimpanzees, and you're into obviously fighting, and I think they are the most diabolical fighters because